Hi, I'm just gonna quickly make this video as a recap of the week 2 assignment. And so in After Effects, the graph editor is a handy little reference page for how the graph editor or graph editors work in After Effects. So let's get started. There are two graph editors. There is a value graph and a speed graph. The value graph is depicting the change in value of whatever property is selected. So if it goes from 0 to 100, it shows 0 to the top being 100. And the arc or the curve is how quickly the integer or the value changes over time. You can see that this would start slow and then speed up and then kind of slow off again. It is not going to be used for this assignment, but there are specific times where it does come in handy. We'll kind of get into that in the future projects and or assignments. The second graph is the speed graph. Speed graph is the majority of the time is what you'll be manipulating when you are sort of in the graph editor. The speed graph works by showing the peak acceleration of the object instead of the value change. So from 0 seconds from 0 seconds to 1 second, you can see that it slowly moves and then it speeds up to the peak of its movement and then slows back down. So if you go ahead and play this animation, you can see that there is a sort of slow start. It quickly passes the middle and then slows at the end. I have it set to cycle back and forth just so that you can see how things are going. Now, if you select the object and you want to open up this graph editor, it is this small key right here on your timeline. If you select your two keyframes, let me stop the animation and click this button, your timeline will change to what is the graph editor. I'm going to make this bigger for you guys, and I will zoom in a little bit. So right now it is showing the value graph, and there's specific times when it's useful, but for this assignment, it's not. I wanted to show you as this is how you change which graph you are looking at. Down at this bottom line or this bottom toolbar, you can choose the option to change your graph is beside this little eyeball. You click that, you'll see value graph and speed graph. Edit the speed graph. You click that, now you are seeing this speed graph. That is the same as what you're seeing in the comp. That is the gist of how you get to the speed graph. Now, how you actually manipulate the speed graph is you select one of these points, which represents your keyframe, and you get these neat little handles, kind of like when you're using the pen tool in Illustrator and you want to change the curve of it. So if I click this and I move it in, you are now seeing it get represented here. And if we play the animation, it now slows in. Let me get rid of my expression. You can see that it slows in and then sort of comes to a stop. So the sharper I make this move, the more abrupt this stop is. And I can do the same over here. And now we have sort of almost a linear movement with the slightest of slowdowns. So though that is how you manipulate the speed graph, is just with these two little anchors. And you can see now we're kind of back to where we started. That is just an example, a nice little tool, a visualization tool to help you guys in understanding the graph editor. Okay, so on to the assignment and what has to be done. What you need to do is you need to apply a linear animation, an ease in, ease out, easy ease, and a hold keyframe animation to these 5 objects. In order to do that, and I will go through it briefly, what you want to do is you want to select the object, much like last week. You want to place the keyframe or start recording your keyframe. You want to go to the end marker and you want to move that over to the other side. You don't have to be exact, it's just sort of a guide. So we've accomplished the first one, which is linear, which you can tell by these little tiny dots on this line being evenly spaced out. It means that it is evenly moving across the screen in this linear fashion. Ease in would be the same. So we're going to go to the start. We're going to hit the stopwatch. We're going to go to the end and move the object. If you hold shift, the object can only be constrained to move left and right or up and down. Sort of locks those axes. So we want to move that over to the side. And now we have two linear animations, but we want the second one to be ease in. So therefore, we want to select the property, open up the graph editor. And again, if you are in the speed or the value graph, remember that you can click this little options and you can select your graph down here. So just make sure that you are on the speed graph for this assignment. We just grab some space. So like before, you select both of these, you hit this button down here, which applies an ease to it. And for an ease in, we want it to be slow at the start and then sort of ramp up near the end and then come to a stop. So select the start, grab this little yellow dot and move it all the way over or to some point where this peak acceleration point is on the out or on the right side closer to your end keyframe. So now, if you play the animation, you can see it slows in and sort of comes to a peak acceleration and then sort of slows out at the end. That is an ease in. Now let's do the others. So for an ease out, you want to start your keyframe. You want to go to the end, place this here, and then you want to select both of these, go into your graph editor, right? When you switch to the graph editor, anything that you've selected will go away. As long as you have this position selected here, it will show up on your graph editor. So you can click and drag to make a box, select your two keyframes. You want to click this button just to start your ease. And to, like the ease in, we want to reverse it. So we want to grab the last keyframe, click this yellow, move it over, and now you can see that it quickly jumps across and then slows down at the end. You're easing the motion out. So that is that one. Now for the last two. So again, position, open up the position by hitting P on your keyboard. You want to go to the start, place your keyframe, move over to the end, slide this over, and then go into your graph editor with this selected. Open up your graph editor, select these two keyframes, and click this button down here. The repetition is key because then it becomes sort of a normal habit to do. The hotkey to do this is F9. We'll apply this default ease, but for Macs and laptops, sometimes the F keys don't work. So the other option is to click this little button down here. So for an easy ease, it essentially means that it is both easing in and easing out. So what we want to do is select the start and move it to the towards the middle. And then you want to select the end and you want to move it towards the middle as well. You want it to be roughly even, but sort of that's discretionary to what you want. You want it to be a little bit quicker. This is still ease in, even though they aren't perfectly even. So if you play your animation now, you can see that it is slow in and then slow at the end. This easy ease. The last one is a little bit different, but the beginning is the same. So you want to hit P with the layer selected, place your keyframe, go to the end, and you want to drag this over like so. So right now we have a linear keyframe. The easiest way to get a hold keyframe is to select both of these, right click it, and you get your properties of the keyframes. And one of the properties is to toggle hold keyframe. So if you click that, you get these sort of squared off shapes on the keys, sort of a combo of linear and hold. And essentially, you've finished. This means, and if you look on the line, there are no dots. Basically means that it will teleport from one side to the other. Once this keyframe hits, it just jumps to the second position because you are holding the value until the value changes, which then becomes a new hold keyframe. That is your assignment, or the assignment, and a quick little recap of everything that we went over in week 2. I hope that helps and is a nice little refresher or a nice little repository for you to look back on if you have more questions.